Hello parents and students. Today's lesson is going to be on adding and subtracting polynomials. And what I've got here is the actual worksheet that we would do in class. We went through together. But I'm only going to do certain questions that I've already have pre-circled here, so you have an idea of what to do again. So before we do this first question, which is add the expressions with your tiles and then simplify each expression, you should really see what your tiles look like. So what I've got here is just a little picture of what the tiles look like. So tiles that are shaded in are positive. So we have 3 positive tiles, and tiles that are non-shaded are negative. So that if we leave them kind of on the white paper, they're negative tiles. So we have the positive x squared tile. It looks like a square. One that looks like a bar is a positive x because it's the same length and width as an x, so we call that just an x bar. This is a square x, so an x squared. This is a positive 1. We have the negative x squared, negative x, and negative 1. All right, so once you have that kind of memorized, then the next part is actually quite simple. So we're going to do, for example, question number 3. So we have to add these polynomials together, but it says to use your tiles. So we have to draw 2x, negative 5, and then to that we're going to add negative 2x squared, a positive 4x, and a negative 3. I tell students it looks like it's plus 4x, but think of this as positive 4x. Think of this as not take away 3, but a negative 3. And think of this as a negative 5. Okay, so once we do that, so we have a 2x, which really quickly here, there's positive 1x, positive 2x. We have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And to this, I will add all of this. So I have a negative 2x squared, which is like so. A positive 4x, 1, 2, 3, and 4, positive 4. And finally, the negative 3. All right. So what we do basically is we have to combine all the shapes that are similar. We want to group them, right? So you notice I have x's, and over here I have x's. So I have 2 x's and another group of x's here. So I have 6 x's all together. And we then have we actually should have started with these shapes because they are usually with the largest shape. Theirs goes first. So we have negative 2x squareds and plus 6 x's, and then we have these little negative 1s here. So we have negative 5 and negative 3, which is negative 8. So this is the simplified answer to this expression, negative 2x squared, positive 6x, negative 8. Okay, looking at the next example, a little interesting because it's a little bit different. So we have 3x squared, a positive 6x minus 8. So we have 3x squared, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do this very quickly. A positive 6x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're all shaded in because they're positive. Anything that's positive is shaded in. And finally we have negative 8. So 1, 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8. Negatives are white or paper, no shade. Then to this we add all of that. So again, it's negative 2x, a negative 4x squared, and a positive 3. All right, so now we're going to group like terms. This time I won't forget, we've got to start with the squares first. However, notice we have 3 positives and 4 negatives, right? So we've learned that opposites will cancel out. So a positive with a negative cancel out, and so do these, and so do these. We call those 0 pairs. So the first thing we do is we cancel out the 0 pairs because opposites make 0. Here we have 6 x's, and over here we have negative 2 x's. So again, canceling out the 0 pairs. Positive, negative, right? And same with this, we have 0 pairs here because those are positive 3. So I need to remove 3 negatives and these 3 positives. Now whatever's left over, that's the simplified answer. So we have, starting with the big one, we have negative x squared. We have 4x, so it's plus 4x, or positive 4x. And then we have negative 5. Sorry, I can't hold the paper here. I'll just write that down. So there we go. So it's negative x squared plus 4x minus 5. That is the simplified answer. Okay. Now, we don't like to use tiles. We like to kind of go into using just not using tiles at all. Okay, so all we do is the instructions say, add these expressions without tiles, simplify by rewriting and grouping like terms with shapes. So here's what we do. We have to simplify by rewriting. By rewriting, all we're doing is basically just removing the brackets, and everything inside the brackets gets written. So we have 2x squared negative 9x, negative 10. Notice no brackets. And to that, I'm going to add these 3 things, right? So we add a positive 7x squared, a positive 4x, and a positive 4. So we rewrite everything. And now using shapes, we group the similar terms, or the similar, or we call them like terms, okay, or the like shapes, similar shapes. So we have 2x squared. I'm going to use a circle to do that. And the 7x squared, which is positive, I'm going to make sure I circle not just the 7x squared, but that positive. The x's, I will put a box around, and that's a negative 9x. Make sure I grab that negative, and a positive 4x. And finally, I'll just underline the last remaining group. Okay, now we put them together. A 2x squared plus a 7x squared is a 9x squared. A negative 9x and a positive 4x is a negative 5x. And a negative 10, positive 4 is negative 6. It's that easy. Okay, and let's just do one more here. So we have 9, add 5x, take away x squared, and to that I'm adding this group, so I'm adding a negative 7x, positive 13x squared, and a negative 12. Circling the like terms, I will circle starting with my biggest shapes, like so, putting a box around my x's, and just underlining my last group. So once I use shapes, now I can simplify, starting with my x's. So negative 8 x squared, positive 13 is a 5x squared. Then my x's are next, so 5x, negative 7 is negative 2x, and finally a 9 and negative 12 is negative 3. Alrighty, so that's adding polynomials. Now we're going to go to subtracting polynomials. Okay, so here we have to subtract these expressions using tiles. Remember, subtracting means adding the opposite, and simplify the expression. Okay, so that's important that you remember that subtracting means that you're actually adding the opposite. So I'm going to do one example, which is, I have 2 circled, but I'm going to just do this one here. So using the tiles, I'm going to represent 4x squared minus 6x plus 1 using the tiles. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're positive, so they're shaded. Negative 6x, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a positive 1 shaded in. Now, this is a takeaway, so this, I'm going to make this an addition. I'm going to change that to add. I'm going to add, but I'm going to add the opposite of all of whatever's in this bracket, because subtracting means add the opposite. So instead of drawing a 6x, I'm going to draw the opposite of 6 or positive 6. I'm going to draw negative 6. So you're adding the opposite of whatever term is inside this bracket. Here, instead of adding a negative 2x squared, I'm going to add the opposite, which is a positive 2x squared. So shade that in for positive 2x's. And instead of adding 2, a positive 2, I'm going to add a negative 2. There we go. So notice the first one, these don't change, but these are now opposite to what was inside the brackets, right? So now I'm going to use my x's here. I'm going to find my 0 pairs, right? Starting with the biggest shape, well, I don't have any there because I have 4 and 2, so that's 6x squared. Here I have my x's, no 0 pairs there, so there's 6 there and another 6 there, so that's negative 12x. But here I have a 0 pair. My 1 and my 1, so I can cancel that out and that out. So I'm left with negative 1. I'm going to hold my paper down here for a second. There we go. So the correct answer now, when it's simplified, is 6x squared minus 12x minus 1. And that's it. Okay. But now, using without tiles, notice here we have a question that says, subtracting without tiles, just rewrite again, simplify, grouping like terms with shapes. So I'm going to do this one question here. So we rewrite by basically this question doesn't change, right? So we have 3x minus 8x squared minus 7. But now remember that when you see a takeaway, it means add, and whatever's in here is going to be opposite. So I'm going to write, instead of a negative x squared, I'm going to write positive x squared. Instead of a positive 9, I write negative 9. Instead of negative 2x, I write positive 2x. And now I group with the circles again. So I have my negative 8, my positive x squared. I will box my x's, positive 3x, positive 2x. I will then underline my other shape. So I have negative 8x squared, positive 1x squared. So that's a negative 7x squared. Here I have my 3x plus 2x, so it's plus 5x. And finally I have a negative 7 combined with a negative 9 that equals negative 16. And that's our simplified answer. Okay. Finally, we have a question where I'm going to do one example of one where you add and subtract. So we have this, take away this, add this. Okay, so right away I see that I can, when I see a subtract, it means add the opposite of whatever's here. But here it's add this, so nothing here gets to be opposite. So when I rewrite it, nothing in here will change. So it's 4x squared positive 5x. Now I'm going to add the opposite of x squared, which is minus x squared. And the opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3. And now I'm just adding a positive 8 and a positive 10x. Those don't change, they stay the same. Now I'm using shapes, so I have x squared, negative x squared. I have a positive 5x with a positive 10x, positive 3, positive 8. When I simplify this answer, 4x squared minus x squared is 3x squared. 5x, 10x is plus 15x. And finally, we have plus 3 plus 8 is positive 11. And that is how you add and subtract polynomials. I hope this lesson helps you in your future endeavors. Good luck.